Sarah Doody, welcome to the show today. It's so nice to see you.
Thanks for having me, Christine. I'm excited to chat.
I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, and I'm giving myself a little grace that it took me up until this year to reach out to you and tell you that. But I've been following your work. I know you've been a UX research and product design leader for years and years, over 2 decades. In addition to your extensive career in that space, consulting, you also have started your career strategy lab, not have started, you founded it in 2017 and you have your podcast, the Career Strategy Podcast. So I have a lot I'd like to chat with you. But before we jump in, hearing more of your story, I have a lot of people listening to my podcast who are feeling very much like we're in a mess, especially in the tech world where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's been layoffs, AI came on the scene. And before we delve in deep, what would you tell people if people take only one thing away from you in our conversation today? What would you
Mhm.
tell them?
Yeah, there's so many things, but one of them that really stands out to me is that people feel very much not in control right now, not just in work, in life. And I think that it's so easy to focus on the things that we cannot control. And there actually is a lot you can control when it comes to your job security, your ability to hit the ground running if you are thrown into a job search, standing out. There's so much you can control. And I just think I don't love to say, oh, it's a mindset shift because there is a mindset shift and there are also actions you take. And I think one of the things that I would say too is the power of the stories that we let ourselves believe. Our brains don't know the difference between fact and fiction. And so when we start to dwell and fester in this negative world, it just snowballs.
You have hope. People working with you are
Yeah,
finding roles even in this mess.
they're getting hired and some of them are getting hired without applying. And how are they doing that? It's because they are doing things like optimizing their LinkedIn profile in the same way that you would SEO a web page that you want to rank in Google. That is one perfect example of what is in your control.
So there's so many people I see now in the product world, UX world, who are focusing on helping candidates stand out and navigate this
Hmm.
mess. You were way before the times. You started the Career
Way before.
Strategy Lab in 2017. And
Yeah.
I wonder, now that there's been this mess, I see post after post on LinkedIn, people who will help others with their job search.
Yeah.
Why did you start 8 years ago? What was going on? You already had your successful UX career, yet you started
Yeah.
the Career Strategy Lab. What problems were you seeing at that time?
A lot of people were asking me for help with portfolios.
Mhm.
And I just thought to myself, a portfolio is a presentation. Like half of my job is making presentations. Why are we struggling making presentations,
Mhm.
you know? And then finally I thought, enough people are asking me this, and I'm kind of sick of it that selfishly, I'm going to make some content about this and I'll never have to talk about portfolios again. Like I naively, completely had plans to continue my own career as it was. It was really the user researcher in me realizing there was a problem. So I made some free content, did a little paid workshop. People got hired. They wanted more help with other parts of their job search beyond portfolios. And it honestly snowballed from there. But if someone had said this is the turn my career would take, I would never have believed them. But it was just listening. I like explaining stuff in a way that helps people like flip things upside down and makes them like think differently. And that link that your search engine is an SEO, a page you need to SEO like that.
Okay, I have to ask you. I said this conversation will go where it goes. So,
Yes.
starting the Career Strategy Lab in 2017, when I think back to that time, it's sometimes a blur.
Mm.
It seemed like the UX field and industry, it was still thriving then. And then we went into the pandemic, more and more people were getting hired, and now we're
Yeah.
here. I'm wondering, you spoke about one thing you'd like people to come away with is thinking about having hope. You can still find
Hmm.
your positions, shifting your mindset a little bit. When you're having people come into your career strategy lab, Are you seeing a different mindset in 2025
Yes.
versus 2017? What do you tell them?
I mean, it's interesting because when I started this, it really, I mean, if we rewind really far back to 2012, that is when General Assembly approached me and said, "Hey, we want to run like this 12-week learn UX thing. Do you want to create the curriculum and teach?" And my friend Dan and I, Dan Macron, we did it together. And I remember at the end of it, like some people got hired, but also Dan and I were kind of like, and we've openly written articles on Medium about this. They learned a lot in 12 weeks, and there is a ton more to learn. And the gap really, there is a giant gap between what you learn in your boot camp versus getting hired and then actually doing the job. So initially in 2017, I was just attracting a lot of junior people by the boot camp wave, obviously. The shift I have seen, the very unexpected shift in my own types of people that come to work with me, like people that have been working in UX for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years are struggling to figure out, how do I stand out in today's job market? How do I make sense of my 3-decade-long career and communicate that? Or I've been a generalist for so long. Can I still be a generalist? Do I have to specialize and learn to code and AI? I guess we don't need to learn to code because of AI. You know, all of those debates. So that shift has been something I did not predict, in that this immense number of mid and senior people coming to me for help as well. But the cool thing is, whether you have 1 year of experience or 30 years of experience, all those people can commingle and coexist, because at the end of the day, SEO optimizing your LinkedIn profile is the same no matter who you are. It's just that your content is different because you're different people.
You're talking about mid-career and senior professionals now coming to you. I mentioned to you that the bulk of my audience is mid-career women, not all women, but
Hmm.
a lot of mid-career women. You said there is still hope. There's other systemic factors at work that may make it harder to find a role. And I'm
Hmm.
curious what your take is. A lot of these women want to be optimistic. They're thinking about their LinkedIn profile, they're tailoring their resumes to roles, and they're not getting responses and they're not hearing back and being told maybe you should look for something less senior. There is fear that with ageism, sexism, other barriers that it's
Hmm.
just not possible in this space right now. I'd love to hear what you're telling people in that role, those women in their 50s trying to figure
Yeah.
out what's next.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to like be toxic
Mhm.
positivity and be like, ageism doesn't exist. It exists, but it's kind of one of those situations of like, yes, and right. Like, yes, it exists. And at the same time, there are companies and teams that want your experience. They want your knowledge, whether it's your deep knowledge of a certain industry or a certain type of product, like you've been working in SaaS for 20 years or something, or you've been working in UX for healthcare for the past decade or something. And so I think for every team or hiring manager may have bias over age, there are teams out there that look at that experience as an asset. But one of the things I find so often is that people don't have like a qualifications problem. They have a problem with how they are positioning and communicating that experience. So it could be worth it to take a step back and look at, if you have this communication and positioning problem, not a qualifications problem.
Those mid-career folks, they haven't gotten callbacks for any of their resumes. They're trying to
Yeah.
figure out what should they do first. Where should they
Hmm.
start if they haven't been successful so far?
I have this philosophy that the greatest product you'll work on is you, and that you need to treat your career as a product, which is why my book, which is not out yet, but it's called The Product of You. And in the same way that products need really strong design, marketing, and sales, like if you think of a Venn diagram, the product you work on needs solid design, marketing, and sales, and you need solid design, marketing, and sales also. And so when we're designing a product, we start with research, right? And so the first thing that I do with people is I have them run through this kind of like design your career sprint, where essentially you are doing research through some questions you ask of yourself, also soliciting feedback from other people. The whole point of this exercise is to uncover the specifics of your experience, your skills, your value, etc. Because, and especially women, we downplay our strengths, things that come naturally to us. We just are like, oh yeah, I'm good at that. It took me 20 minutes. And someone else might be like, wait a sec, that is a superpower. But so many times we don't recognize it, or we used to recognize those skills, but our toxic boss, our idiot colleague, made us believe that we weren't good at those things anymore. And so now we've believed, back to your brain not knowing the difference, our confidence has tanked essentially. Yeah.
I would love to chat about something though. So when I'm working with mid-career women, I'm not helping them find the next job, but we're doing what you're doing, like thinking about what can only we bring to our
Yes.
next act, whether it's a full-time job or a next chapter in life. And so
Yeah.
I'm calling it like what makes you only you. And it sounds like you're going through
Yeah. I
very
love it.
similar exercises. What I
Yeah.
wondered though, and where I was a little bit surprised where you took the conversation was I saw you writing about a common mistake that people are saying where they
Hmm.
start believing they can't find their next role. You describe it, I love this, the terminal uniqueness thinking. And I was
Yep.
wondering, can you explain what that is? Because I've been struggling with the world of tech right now, where a lot of the
Yep.
recommendations are you have to tailor who you are exactly to what this company is looking for. And that
Yeah.
seems to wash away our uniqueness and what makes us only you. So I'm just wondering, how do you reconcile all that? We all have to bring our best of to roles, but you describe this thinking that just is not benefiting people.
I love how you described it. And I think the idea of everyone trying to fit into this mythical unicorn box, it causes everyone to come across like as very utilitarian and sterile, for lack of a better word, right? If you go to LinkedIn and just randomly look at, because I just did this morning, like 10 different profiles of a UX researcher, or content designer, or writer, or something, a lot of them sound very similar. I'm a product designer. I want to create products that are founded on human centered principles and will change the world with design. And yeah, I think we're losing the part that makes us unique. And this whole terminal unique thing really came up in my podcast and stuff, because we find that people look at their experience and they begin to believe that my experience is too disjointed. It's too all over the place. My career break and the fact that I popped from healthcare to finance to whatever, from B2B to SaaS to this, that, the other, it's like now my career makes no sense and I will never be able to get hired. That's where that kind of
Yeah.
stemmed from. It's this trap that you get caught in, back to the brain, right? Like you believe then I'm too different, I'll never get hired. And so part of a lot of what we do is help people see, no, your uniqueness, number one, can transfer to like B2B experience, can translate to B2C. It's not as though you can never flip between the two types of products. And like I said, one of the things that we do is help people see that, but it's hard to see it when you are just in this quicksand thinking that you're too unique and you'll never be able to get hired again.
As a researcher, you're collecting so much data throughout the Career Strategy Lab, and you're learning
Yes.
from all of the people going through your program, whether it's qualitative, but you also have had enough people going through your program where it's quantitative too. And there's a lot of myths. I am having the hypothesis that in the UX space right now, it's easier. More people are getting their jobs if they're entry level or junior level or smaller, lower salaries than the mid career, senior career folks. Have you seen specific patterns? Like when you're looking at, you have entry level folks and very, very senior folks. Is everyone struggling equally, or are you seeing some patterns there?
Yeah. To be honest, I've noticed it. decline in the number of junior people who are coming to us. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. It could be that there are more people doing what I do and frankly charge less. And
Yeah.
so juniors go to them. I don't know. So I don't have enough recent data to speak to if I think you were saying like more junior and entry level people are able to get hired faster than more senior. So my data shows that of the people who come to me and get hired, 67% are hired in under 6 months. Now that breaks down to 32% are hired in 0 to 3 months and 35 in 3 to 6. So that's pretty fast, especially if many of these people had already been applying for over 1 year.
I really appreciate you sharing those data points. We've been talking about there's a mindset issue, but when you were offering people feedback on their LinkedIn profiles and you were like, there's some opportunities here. What are you seeing? Do you have advice for people? I'm afraid to have you go to my LinkedIn
Yeah,
profile, but
I
what are you
mean,
telling people?
it was okay, starting from the top of a LinkedIn profile, a banner that was blank or that had a photo that told me nothing about people's photos of vacations, of their pets, of some cool sunset they took. It's like, nice photo, and that is total wasted space. Imagine a company and the top section of their website has a photo that is unrelated to their product. That's bad, right? We wouldn't do that for the products we work on. For Career Strategy Lab, if there was a photo at the top of Career Strategy Lab of me at the top of a mountain, that would be insane. And so that is one. Another one is a LinkedIn profile headline, the text below your name, that is either not customized because it just defaults to job title and company. This is a great example. It gets too personal or too cute. Like just 2 hours ago, I found a bunch on LinkedIn that had to do with either like UX design or content strategy and stuff. And it was like content strategist, passionate about words, dog mom. I'm like, no recruiter is searching for a content designer who is a dog mom, you
No?
know? So it's like this whole notion of SEOing your stuff. I think once you see it, you can't unsee it, but no one's made you see it yet until my workshop 2 hours ago or this podcast. So, other things like having the about section not filled in or filled in with just a ton of jargon that's like designer passionate about pixels and changing the world and blah, blah, blah. It's really nothing about you. And the bar to stand out is so low on LinkedIn because I did a LinkedIn search. I typed in dog mom just to see how many results would come up. I could not believe so many people's profiles mentioned dog mom or cat lover or other random stuff. Guys, this is not like a dating profile. Show the receipts, show the evidence that you have the skills to do what is in the job description and think like that person, the recruiter who is typing into LinkedIn Recruiter words and phrases related to the person they want to hire.
When you've seen the members of the Career Strategy Lab who have graduated, found their next great job, specifically talking about a lot of those mid career, senior career members who are now working with
Yeah.
you, are there two or three main attributes or behaviors you're seeing from those folks?
Number one is follow the program, you know, follow my program. And I say this because I use this analogy all the time. Like, I'm a big Peloton person. I'm injured, so I can't ride right now. It's driving me insane. But if you join a gym or you buy a Peloton and you have a fitness goal, whether it's like, I want to get stronger, I want to lose weight, I want to gain weight, I want to have better mental health, whatever, that doesn't happen unless you put your butt on the bike and pedal. And no one else can do that for you. The instructor is not going to text you and coax you out of bed in the morning to do that. And in the same way, the people who join and get hired most quickly, they do the work. Number one, do the work. Number two, don't chase perfection. You just have to be better than everyone else. We'll be tempted to perfect everything, but time and time again, I see people say in our community, I applied even though my resume was not good enough in their own eyes. I used my portfolio, even though I was not finished all of the portfolio lessons inside Career Strategy Lab. And I got the interview and I got hired. So, this whole phrase I keep using about the bar to stand out is low. It's low,
Yeah.
and your 10% better resume than what you have right now, portfolio, etc. That could be all you need, you know?
Okay, something I'm hearing that's only based on anecdotal evidence, not as much data
Yep,
as you have. I don't know if it's a myth or if there's a degree to truth to this, but what I've been hearing from a bunch of people is that the way they found their role was through a connection. They have someone who
yep,
knows them well. And a lot of people are now saying, making the leap to, if you don't have a connection at the company, don't even bother. And I'm
yep.
curious where you land there. I'm assuming it's not that black or white, but what are you seeing in the data?
Yeah, I'm seeing both. For example, with Career Strategy Lab, to your point of people get hired because they know someone at the company. I just found out a couple of weeks ago that 4 or 5 people from Career Strategy Lab have now been hired at Liberty Mutual. How? Because one person got hired there however long ago, came back, posted in our community, hey, my team is hiring. And because they had that commonality, they knew someone, right? So I see that with people in various other communities as well. I am still seeing people get hired with no connections, such as this woman, Laura, who was found by the VP of product on LinkedIn because her LinkedIn was optimized. She did not know anyone there. And so that is one example of how people are able to get hired without applying because someone found them on LinkedIn.
I'm wondering when people see your experience and what you've built,
Mhm.
I'm wondering,
Yeah.
I'm speaking with a lot of women who are powerhouse, but they have not been feeling that way over the last couple of years. And I wonder, have you faced any? We've been describing it when I work with these women, and I talk to it as the messy middle. You hit a point, and it doesn't have to be career, it could be life as well, but you hit this mess and you're in it and you think that people like Sarah Doody just haven't experienced that. And I'm curious, have you hit a messy middle at any point?
How explicit is this podcast? The past 2.5, 3 years have been a complete shit show, personally and professionally. Career Strategy Lab, it's great. The experience in there, I don't want people to worry like if they come into Career Strategy Lab with some chaotic mess. People are getting hired. It's fine. When I see shit show behind the scenes, I mean like operations stuff and legal matters and having intellectual property issues for like people who have taken my programs think they can take it and sell it as their own, and an ungodly amount of hours and of my life and money are spent essentially becoming a paralegal for that and various other stuff, dealing with finances like the economy. Everyone is freaked out right now. I totally understand it. Have we been impacted? Absolutely. Have my costs increased for software, for so many other things? Yep. And so balancing the finances of the business, the legal of the business, the absolute trolls out there who write obscene things about me in the comments or threads. I wouldn't even divulge what those are. And then my personal life is also a mess. And basically, I don't know if we're getting too personal, but
No,
basically,
we're
like, I was rear-ended 2.5 years ago, $27,000 of damage to my vehicle, and I have been battling health issues since then. I kind of look back and try and figure out how I held it all together. But when it's your business, I don't really have a plan B. I have to keep this running. It's tough. I sometimes don't know how I do it other than I'm a really resilient person. I am not positive all the time, but I know when I take the negativity and shift it to positive, things get better. Even with like injuries, with the physical therapy, I'm just like, okay, I need to stay positive. I need to visualize like the disc healing. So I'm an open book, but that's the reality behind the machine of Career Strategy Lab that's helping people get hired.
I appreciate you sharing.
That was a lot. I feel like I just exploded, but I'm like, well, no one ever asked me about like behind the scenes. So it's true though. It's like this is the craziness of business ownership. So
And
Yeah,
I so appreciate you saying it's been a shit show at certain points.
it
Me
still
too. And
is.
well, yeah. And what the one thing I'm learning as a researcher, and I'm wondering what
Yeah,
you've been finding, is that it's a shit show for everyone, just different
yep,
configurations of it. Like, we don't know people's stories. People see you and see others.
yeah,
And if they're thinking that just everything is perfect, I've been hearing
yeah,
with mindsets, then people leap to that inner critic of saying, well, then something must be wrong with me. For those people who have that inner critic saying, I did something wrong, do you,
yeah,
in your mindset sessions or coaching sessions, have a response to that?
yeah. I think part of it really does come down to making a conscious choice to not believing that narrative anymore. I know it sounds like a little woo to some people and things like that, but if you let yourself sit in this like narrative of everything's out of my control, it's never going to get better, the system is biased, it's rigged, you start to believe that. Like, I just listened to something about this last night, and I keep a series of Post-it notes on my desk, and they are very specific, like XYZ will happen legally or something. I put like dollar amounts on Post-it notes of like goals I have and stuff. I put like this will happen, etc. And when I write shit down, it happens.
Yeah,
It's insane.
yeah.
But it reminds me, it pulls me out of that negative,
Mhm.
you know?
This is admittedly
Yeah.
projecting on my part, Sarah. Like you, I also
Yeah.
can operate at a velocity that people go, how are you doing that? And I'm curious, have you ever had to hit a point? I've hit those points where I won't stay in the woe is me, but then I'll act, 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 act. And one thing that's
Yeah.
happened to me is when I'm acting at a level like, oh, my velocity is amazing, but then I've gotten sick. My lesson learned was, yes, I can have very high velocity, but sometimes too much velocity is not good either. I'm like wondering,
Yeah.
how do you find that balance? I know how productive you are. I know what you're doing, but are you consciously and
Yeah.
intentionally thinking about that?
Yeah, I am very similar in that if I like have some big deadline and a bunch of stuff happening, I will often physically get sick after, like sore throat, whatever, won't go away. It takes me 2 weeks to recover from whatever I just accomplished. And it's like your body is like in adrenaline mode, and then it's like in overdrive, and then when that goal happens, it has to catch up, right? And so I experienced that. How do I deal with it? I think number 1, yoga is huge for me. I try and do it twice a week. Sometimes my mind is designing web pages in the middle of yoga, but I try when I notice myself doing that, I'm like, okay, come back to my breath, do the things, whatever. So that's a really big thing for me. I also try and be pretty strict about shutting off work, which is easier said than done, but so many people working from home and stuff, like I will literally shut this office door so I don't even have to look in this room at night.
The population, specifically of mid career senior women who are going
Yeah.
through the career strategy lab, you mentioned that some people will come in with the mindset of, oh, my UX career is over. People also have the misconception when I'm working with women going into their next chapter that it's all about escaping UX. No, some people
Yeah.
decide they want to continue in this career. Others make some pivots. I'm curious, have you had any people who have gone through the career strategy lab who have made a decision to incrementally pivot in a new direction, but leverage their UX skills? And if so, are there any patterns there? I've never seen people just being like, no, I'm done. But there's so
Yeah.
many practical implications to a UX skill set that can be used elsewhere.
I have this first sprint we do around designing your career. It's so powerful. And I remember one woman, she said in the community essentially like that first, she was employed. She came into Career Strategy Lab proactively, trying to figure out like, who am I? What am I doing? What do I want to do next? She did this design your career thing. And then she said, I realized my job that I like is not really right for me and setting me up for anything in the future. So I'm going to quit. And so she quit. And I was like, oh, great. Career Strategy Lab helps people get hired. And sometimes we help people quit. So that was really profound to me because sometimes moving forward recognizes like you need to identify what's not working for you and figure out what does your career look like on your own terms. And so we've definitely had other people join and pivot their own careers. One woman comes to mind. She did UX writing and she dabbled in freelancing. Like she went on Fiverr or something like that, got hired by major companies. She made a ton of money. She did this freelancing stuff. And then one of the companies ended up hiring her full time because they liked her so much. There definitely are examples of people who worked in UX and then didn't like go become a hairdresser or something, but I just got my hair done, but did something else like product manager, for example. It goes back to like defining your career on your own terms, which, yes, some people will say like sounds entitled, but I think people believe it's so hard to get hired. And there's so many companies that need our help.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's an unpredictable time. It's an unfair question, but I'm going to ask you this. Based on the patterns you're seeing over the last
Yeah.
year or two or the UX space, where do you think we'll be next year at this time as an industry?
I think we will not be in as bad a place as we think we're going to be. In that, I'm reading a lot about AI, like not just specific to our industry, but specific to other industries, social media, society in general. And I think that the pendulum is so far off in gung ho AI stuff. And I think it's going to come back and slap us in the face, probably realizing that we need that human touch in terms of the words we write, the designs we make, the thoughtfulness of the experiences and every single touch point and how every single touch point fits together. Like, here's a crazy, am I going to tell this story? I guess so. Like, years and years and years and years ago, I watched the Oprah show and they had some wedding planner who had designed some celebrity's wedding. Even forget who. And I remember he said, I will never forget this. I remember he said they mic'd the hooves of the horses so that because the bride came in on horses and all this, and they put microphones on the feet of the horses so people could hear like the clippity clop of the horses coming. And I thought, that is crazy, and I didn't even know what UX was, but, like, talk about designing experiences. Would AI have thought to mic a horse's hooves? I don't know, but, a little bit of a crazy example, but I don't know that AI like, another example, this comedian was asked, like, "Do you think you're gonna be replaced?" And he said, "AI can imitate me, but it can't reach inside my brain and put together that interaction I had at the coffee cart and this thing that happened at the airport and this thing that happened with my kid and turn it into like a joke." So that's my prediction, but ask me in a year.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for the conversation today. I know my listeners, they've learned a bit about your recommendations and brilliance. My takeaway was for those listeners who are in that messy middle, they want to find what's next, thinking about their mindset, knowing there's hope, and doing the work. If people want to
Yep.
do the work and they want to work with the Career Strategy Lab, where do my listeners find you if they'd like to
Yeah.
learn more?
The best place to go is careerstrategylab.com. And in the top navigation, there's a link called UX Career Coaching. But in the drop down, as of today, there are links to like stage specific pages, so like senior UX career coaching, mid level UX career coaching, switching to UX, etc. So that way you can hear more details and see case studies of people relevant to whatever you're experiencing in your career right now.
Sarah, thank you. It's
Yeah.
been so fun chatting today.
Thanks for having me, Christine. This was so much fun.